All right. You ready?
Let's do it.
I started the clock straight away. Welcome everyone to the last session between you and those drinks back there. We'll get this over as fast as possible. I'm Roger Sherwood. I lead the industry solutions go-to-market at Presidio. I am not the star of this stage. I have reached the time in my career and my journey in this industry where I just want to work with really, really good people. People that understand and have been in this industry and really care about it. And I'm so proud to have Andrew Reich on my team at Presidio. And we're going to be talking to him and his experience in this industry. And we're going to weave in some of the things that Presidio has brought to market in the last 6-7 months. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Andrew, I was going through your bio. We know each other. You work for me. You spent the last year at Zixi. You spent 5 years at AWS, and you worked for me there too. You worked at the MLB, NHL. You started off in the Celtics production department as an intern. You logged and edited NBA playoff footage, practice footage, interviews, and press conferences.
Really going back in time.
That was at the beginning. Which part of those processes, at any point in your career, which part would you have liked to have automated then? Which part did you hate the most that you had to do manually?
So when I was at CBS Sports in Boston, every night I had to log Boston Red Sox games by hand. And I'm actually also a New York fan, and grew up in Massachusetts, but every night it was my job to handwrite pitch by pitch, out by out, hit by hit, every single Red Sox game every night. And that was a manual process. So if we could have automated that, well, I think it was important for my learning to understand logging and putting together production. Ultimately, logging is one of the core components. If that could have been automated, maybe some of my other time spent as an intern, I could have been in the field learning about production. I could have been learning how to edit. I could have been learning how to operate a camera. But I spent a lot of my time writing out everything that happened in a 3 to 5 hour baseball game
Every night.
every night.
All right. And you did that here? You did that on this slide?
No, so this was from my time at MLB Network. I think it was at an All-Star game or a World Series. We had a remote crew where we would be on site and we would help capture all the content taken for the game of baseball. So that could be footage for documentaries, behind the scenes, live studio shows, social media content, sales activations. And we've set up these workstations to take in all this content, log all the content, scrub through all the content, edit it. And a lot of times we would get camera cards with 5 hours worth of footage. We would have to manually scrub through it just to pull out a 30-second clip for a sales activation, which was also a very tedious process.
Right. And how much of that still exists now? Like, how much of that is still being done manually today?
I think there are components of it that are still manual, but I think people are definitely reevaluating, as we're here to discuss today, is how to make those workflows more efficient and ultimately reallocate your resources to have them focusing more on the creative and less on the components of the workflow that are a little bit more redundant and could be automated.
Right. So we've got this slide. You know, there's so much content, right? You talked about manually logging 3 to 5 hour games. You know, how much is out there? A league, a sports team, how much do they actually have that they need to manage, that they need to catalog? How much more is coming in? It's got to be overwhelming, right?
Yeah, and when it's also, you think about the way that sports and games are covered now with the extensive amount of technology and cameras. So you have the current coverage, but you also have the rich history of all these games.
Right.
And the beauty of live sports is on any given night, anything can happen, something that no one can even anticipate happening. So when there's a perfect game in baseball or a walk-off home run in a World Series, immediately producers want to go back to a play from 1975 that reminded them of that current moment. And in some cases, or when I was there, it required finding an old tape, digitizing it, going through it, and pulling out a clip and maybe even transcoding it, because a lot of this content in that spur of the moment, it may not be ready for high def and the social media platforms that it has to go out to. So there's a lot of work that's required to anticipate.
Yeah. You worked on something, I remember, you were still at AWS, but you worked on something for the Seahawks that was before AI had become what it is right now. But this would take us back to that one. What did you do there?
So that was a really cool project. We were meeting with the Seahawks, and there's a great blog on it, AWS. But ultimately, we met with them conveniently this season before their Super Bowl run, and basically they had two people on their digital team, two or three people, and they were telling us about all of the the media supply chain workflows they had, where they had to log all the press conferences. They had to extract the best moments from those press conferences. And they have a big German market. The NFL has done a great job of globalizing the game, but now there are these different regions that want this content, and they had to translate the content. So working through with them, we helped create a media supply chain automated workflow where it would extract a moment or a strong soundbite from a press conference would get extracted, it would get summarized, it would get translated, and then it would get sent out for distribution. And I love that project so much because I think that's a perfect place for AI or Gen AI, especially in a day and age where, understandably so, people are resistant. People are resistant about something going on live air that was generated by AI. I would have the same concern, but these automated behind the scenes workflows, they're meant to be automated. I mean, I talk to people and they say, oh, well, it could be wrong. Well, a human could be wrong too. Like somebody could edit something and misspell a name or, take the wrong clip. That happened all the time, where that clip then had to be taken down and republished to a social media site. So, it could be wrong, absolutely, but that's why you have someone QCing the content before you upload it, just like you do with humans.
Yep. So you mentioned AI. There's no shortage of noise around AI and intelligence. Where are you seeing it being genuinely useful across media, entertainment, gaming, sports today?
I think use cases you
from that one.
Well, yeah. So that, I think, highlight, clipping, editing, some of that, using tools to compile footage. I think in those use cases, you don't really have to worry as much about what's going on over air because you can still QC it. I think also with analytics, a lot of stats are going through machine learning. Again, I think, people at this point, because when we look at next gen stats and, different analytics packages, people, are trusting that more. And a lot of those stats are being used by machine learning. So I think that's a big use case that I think we're seeing continue to evolve for on air.
Yep.
But for the behind the scenes, it's that supply chain editing piece.
Okay. So take us through, customers that you've worked with over the last 5 years. You and I have spoken and worked with many of them, but the cost of standing still, as we approach customers today and talk about, you have to do something, that there are things that you need to do. The cost of standing still is what? What's the risk?
I mean, we're ultimately, when you think about all these broadcasters and you think about leagues, there's so much rich content out there that just isn't being seen. And that's causing, as the slide says, missed revenue. One of my favorite examples, and we were talking about this recently, was the best documentary I've watched in the last 5 years was The Greatest Night in Pop on Netflix about We Are the World. And why I like it is because one of the most iconic songs with all these global icons, there's raw footage of them all interacting from the 80s and late 80s, early 90s when that took place. And I sit there and I wonder, where has this been for 30 years? Why is this just seeing the light of day now when you have the biggest icons and celebrities interacting? And someone asked me recently, they said, oh, what's the next example of that where there will be something emerge? I don't know. And I think that's the thing is people that are, and some of the organizations that haven't digitized and migrated their archives and they haven't tagged them and uncovered what's there, people are sitting on some very valuable content that needs to see the light of day. And when we see all these documentaries that have been produced with this old content that many people are watching, I think that's the missed opportunity if you don't uncover what's there.
Yeah. It's 40 years, by the way. How old were you?
Yeah.
All right. So talk a little bit about what we announced this week. All right. We're on the stage with AWS at the courtesy of AWS. We built some stuff on AWS. Tell us about it.
So with Resonate, Media Intelligence content engine, what I really like about it is it's operationalizing AI, and it's working with customers to use AI in the broadcast industry at their pace. It's modular. It's not a product. It's working with them to identify what components of your workflow in broadcast, whether it's ingest, whether it's media management, whether it's distribution, whether it's summarization and tagging. It's working with a customer to figure out what can we help you with? How can we make your life easier in this space and automate some of this? And again, at your pace. And I think that's really important. So it's really, helping uncover some of those monetization opportunities, summarize content. Again, you digitize and migrate your archive. You want to see what's there. So that's a big component of it. Another one is you're getting maybe live content and you want a quick way to package it for, a feature or a documentary. You want a highlight, whether it's a highlight for news or highlight for sports, it can quickly compile those clips together. Yep. So it's really helping customers navigate through their AI journey in broadcast and production.
And the managed services piece, I know this is something that, we've been working on. We brought this to market, but the importance of managed services today?
I think where it's important is because this technology is still very new, and yeah, we're all aware, but there is some resistance towards it. I think it's really important that we can offer that managed service to help and be kind of a security blanket for customers if they encounter, any bugs or issues or things that are maybe a little uncomfortable for them. I think in this day and age with new technology, managed service is really important to help customers get acclimated to a new workflow in an industry where a lot of workflows have been primarily the same for years.
Yeah. Love that. All right. We're going to show a quick video. We have audio.
If you have access to live stream content, or you have a library of media that you need to classify and organize, Resonate Intelligence is for you. We're building the components of a media asset management platform. If you already have one, we can work with it. If you don't, we can help you build and scale. Resonate Intelligence gives you the ability to store and process your data and creates the agents and workflows that build around it. The first step is uploading your media. As it processes, Resonate Intelligence is looking through the content, analyzing the data that comes out of the file. Once it's done, you can go to your file, select Edit, and see the results of that processing phase. All of the metadata associated with the file, things like teams, specific events, players, even the sport or league, are brought together to begin building out a repository of tags. This is just the initial tagging. You can scale beyond with custom tagging to add extra details as you go. You'll also see a minute-by-minute rendition of what happened, who was in the play, what happened during the play, and what the action was. Curating, storing, and building out a deeper repository of information so that you can organize and find your content more effectively. From here, you can now use Resonate Intelligence to quickly curate all of your content in seconds. The agentic core built into it does all of the work for you based just off your initial search terms. What you're given are clip moments of time pulled directly from your search. Clicking Generate Reel packages these moments into an editable timeline. You can edit the transition types, durations, move clips around. It's a quick, easy, and effective custom editor. With AI, you've now simplified your time, reduced friction, and created a better product faster and more efficiently. That's Resonate Intelligence.
All right. Couple more questions then. So I like what you said about the managed services piece. A lot of leaders know that they need to evolve, right? They can't stand still. What advice would you give to the leaders that are interested but still cautious about moving forward?
I think a little bit what I said before, go at your own pace.
Mm-hmm.
No one's forcing anyone to say, oh, you have to and that's why I like that it's not a product, it's modular. And what I like about that a lot is we're not saying, yeah, if you use this, you have to overhaul your whole workflow. No, that's not what it is. It's working with customers to see, hey, is there a piece of your workflow that we can help make your day-to-day easier? You know, there are customers who we speak to that have 700 channels or, you know, a lot of different entities as part of a bigger broadcaster, and they're monitoring all of that. So it's what's a little piece that you would like to see automated, and let's help you with that. So I think going at your own pace and as customers feel most comfortable.
And in terms of, you know, that pacing, how do we help customers understand the pace of AI and Gen AI and everything that's at them right now?
Well, it's a catch-22 in a sense, because, you know, in their AI journey, you want them to go at your own pace, but you have to also implement quickly because it's a 24/7. So it's that where it's a 24/7 industry. So that's where the managed services is really key. And we're not saying that we need to, you know, again, do everything tomorrow, but from working at a broadcaster, if there's a really cool piece of technology, I want it in as soon as possible. But again, you're not overhauling your whole tech stack. You can piecemeal it. You can go again at your own pace, your own risk. And I think that's what's really important, because you don't want to, since it is a 24/7 industry, you don't want to throw off the current workflow, because you have live shows, you have live content that you're responsible for. So sometimes running things in parallel and then taking the training wheels off is important as well.
Yep. I know you've only been here 3 weeks and what you've seen of Presidio so far. So how do we help customers go at their own pace?
I think what I really admire and what I really like is the hunger for innovation and the collaborative spirit with customers.
Yep.
And really that having an open mind and really listening. I think that's really important. Is yes, broadcasters, sports leagues, they all have similar workflows. They all do things that are mainly the same, but they're also different. They also have unique workflows. They also have different parts of their workflow that are different. So while the concepts may be the same, they all operate a little differently. And that's why I think when we approach our customers, it's important that we also approach them as different leagues and broadcasters. While we have frameworks and demos and things that we can show them, it's important to really listen and learn for what they're looking to accomplish. And I think that willingness to listen and be ready for that collaborative innovation is really important.
Very good. Last question. If you had to place one bet on what is going to matter most in this industry over the next few years, where would you make that bet?
So when we think about this, I feel like we're post-COVID, we're seeing live sporting events be back where, they're selling out, great crowds, concerts. We don't even need to talk about what happened with Taylor Swift and how much revenue that generated. The area that I'm curious is when we think about movie theaters, because I feel like movie theaters have not necessarily rebounded. And part of that could be because of, the streaming services that are bringing those movies to your homes. I've got to think with a more engaging, immersive, next generation experience. Not sure what that is yet. I feel like we may see some cool things with movies and viewing experiences.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Hey, everyone. Thank you very much for listening. Appreciate it.